Hi again. Let's continue this very, very interesting lecture. Now we have gone through the larger environment, understanding the environment with the 7 dimensions and Porter's 5 forces. But now we're going to look at your position, your company's position in this environment. And we start with market segmentation and diffusion of innovation. And I think you kind of are familiar with market segmentation, right? Then you look at, are all your customers the same or are they different? What central dimensions may be used to segment your customers? Can it be sex, size, age, or something completely different and more creative? Do you find your customers in some particular intersection or cross-section of different segments? And in order to figure out your segment of the market, you might do some market research. And you can do that through interviews. And when you talk to people, you can have focus groups where you kind of, that is basically when you have an idea of what your segment might be like. You gather some people and you let them talk about your product and engage them in a discussion so that you can find out new things about it and about the relationship between potential client and product or service, whatever it is. You might do a survey. You might do observations because, as you know, potential clients doesn't always know what they need. One example of that is Electrolux. They sell vacuum cleaners, and then they went out doing observation. I think it was in England, where they looked at women and how they use their vacuum cleaners at their homes, and they said, well, this is fine, we don't need anything else. But when they looked at how they used the vacuum cleaner, they constantly during the 1 week took out the big vacuum cleaner from the cupboard and started just vacuuming some small sections of the house. And they were like, this is not very practical to do this with this big vacuum cleaner. And that was a way for them to understand, well, hey, we can have this small handheld vacuum cleaner that we can sell instead. And of course, social media. You can see what's going on, what do the bloggers say, what does people seem to be talking about. There's a lot that you can do there. If you remember the innovation lecture, we talked about Rogers' diffusion of innovation curve, and you can see that here as well. Then we have, at first, this is a simplified version, of course, of it. If you look at the customers, you can see that first you have no customers, and then you have the innovators, then you have the early adopters and the early majority, then you have the early majority and the late majority, kind of this intertwined, and then you have the laggards. And the x-axis here is time. And you have 2 curves, so the y-axis is different for both of these curves. And the one that we talked about now, the customers, that is reflected in the sales, the curve that you see above the other. First you don't have a lot of sales, then it grows, and then you have kind of a top, and then it kind of declines. But if you look at the profit, you can see that you don't make any profit really in the beginning. You actually lose money in the beginning. It goes down, and then when you do the introduction, it still is down because there might be some other alternative to your product that people are still buying, and that might force you to pressure your prices lower than you would want to in order to compete with that. And then it slowly grows, and you get to a point of growth, and then you get into maturity and then decline. So that is kind of a segmentation of the customer base. who do you reach first and who comes later. And here we have the technology adoption life cycle. And here we have it more clearly: the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. And we have the chasm here as well, you can see. It's kind of hard to go from early adopters to late majority. So that is something that's really important and a crucial point for the company. And you can try to close it through lead user involvement, collaborative innovation with customers, or customer co-creation in some way. Kickstarter, it would be one example of co-creation perhaps, or open innovation, another. And it can also be that you try to find a lead user, that's someone who's important, that people listen to, that kind of advocate your product. Here we have two examples of people having made one page describing their market segment. And if we take this first one, they have a one-liner describing them as bargaining hunting mamas. They are best represented by women, often mothers, aged 35 to 44. How many in the US population? Well, they estimate around 24.6 million. What are their traits? Well, they're responsible for household shopping. They are value-driven buyers. And how can you nurture a relationship with them? You can provide special offers and promotions and facilitate interaction with other mamas like them. Why they're important? These mamas are eager to participate in an online community to research topics, share their knowledge, and receive offers and promotions. Incentivize them with coupons, and they will bring tremendous value to your community and brand. A bit salesy, but this is one way to kind of help yourself to get a glimpse of your market segment once you found it. And then you can test this out, of course, with focus groups. If we move on to your position in the environment, you can also use SWOT analysis. I will not go into detail on this, but you basically look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and try to identify them within your environment in relation to your company. And you can do this in many settings. You can do it for one product, you can do it before you start a project. It's used in many ways, but one way is to use it within the market analysis. If we move on to the competitive advantage, we have a new four-fielder. It's important. You can look at what kind of competitive advantage do you want, what is your strategic target. And we have, the first one here is cost leadership. Then you target a wide audience, you have many people that you want to reach, and you focus on low costs. And you try to increase your profits by reducing cost, might still charge industry average prices, and you try to increase your market share through charging lower prices while still making a reasonable profit. The differentiation. That involves making your product special and more unique and attractive to your clients in that way. Might not be the cheapest alternative, but you're still targeting a wide audience. And you're doing that by adding something a little bit extra that is not a low price, it's something else. Might be to do with quality or design or something like that. And in the lower part of the matrix, you find the cost focus, and that can be a cost focus that you kind of charge average prices in the industry. You don't have very expensive stuff, but you still kind of target a narrow group of people. And an example of that could be the DVDs that you could buy outside of ICA and Konsum. Before, you had a machine where you could not buy a DVD, sorry, you could rent a DVD. That was kind of cheap, but it was not as cheap as having Netflix or something like that. But you're kind of targeting a very narrow set of clients that did not use streaming and that kind of things. The differentiation focus is that you kind of have something that you might be expensive and it's good quality, but you target a narrow group of people. And one example of that would be when you develop a drug, a medicine, for a disease that doesn't affect so many people. So, and how big is your market? We're moving into that. You can look at TAM, total addressable market, which is the total market demand for a product or service, like in the world. How many people would like this? And then you look at SAM, service available market. This is basically the segment of TAM that is targeted by your products and services. That is in your geographical reach. And then you have the SOM, serviceable and obtainable market. And that is the portion of the SAM that you can actually capture. And the reason to do this distinction is that, well, when you look, you start with the SOM, but you can kind of expand, perhaps. If your venture in the SOM makes sense and it kind of goes well, then you could probably expand up into the SAM. And that could be good to keep in mind. That was all for today.